Factory Talk: Secrets of Effective Plant Leaders. Produced by
Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of Factory Talk. With us today, we have Don Bair from Robinson Fans. Glad to have you here. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jamie. I'm from Robinson Fans. We specialize in the fabrication of air moving equipment and process fans for industry. That's both new installations, repair options, and Robinson's been at it for over 125 years now. So a company with a lot of history, family-owned company. Very proud to be a part of it. Personally, my journey at Robinson started about 14 years ago now. I was hired in as a temp hire, general labor out on the shop floor. At the time, I was coming off of active duty tours in the Air Force. My plan was to finish my degree in accounting and move on to that. But some great opportunities at Robinson came up, and I'm here 14 years later too. After a couple years in the shop, I got a feel for various departments. I got to work in fabrication and welding for a little while. I got to work in shipping and receiving, painting. Gave me a great understanding of the processes in the shop and how our equipment's manufactured. After that experience, I moved into a production assistant role in the office. It was a heavy emphasis on planning for that role. I got to, at the time we were putting in an ERP system, so I got to be on the ground level of implementing that. I got to set up manufacturing methods, bombs. Gave me a great understanding of what all goes into our fans, the recipe for our fans. After a few years in that role, I moved into a role that was created called the Repair Production Manager. And with that role, one of the focuses were to set up a new area in our plant to inspect incoming equipment. Before that, it was kind of an afterthought. Customers would send in equipment for repair. It would get placed on whatever corner of the plant we had room, and we were more focused on the paid orders at the time. But realizing that was a big part of our business, we wanted to create an area just for focusing on inspecting equipment, diagnosing what's wrong with it, get it ready to quote for repairs. So it's pretty cool. We got an entire bay to dedicate to that in our plant. And we got to start from scratch. We got to work on things like flow. We got to work on all the processes. We got Surface Pro tablets. We recreated our inspection forms, more presentable forms to send to the customer. So that was a cool experience to be a part of. After about 2 years of that, I transitioned into the rapid response value stream manager. I got a little taste of the sales side of the business in that role. I got to work with our estimators, our external sales reps. Got to be the one often to take the calls from the customer when they were down and out with an emergency. Gave me a whole new perspective of what our customers expected, how business came into Robinson. It was a piece of it I didn't quite understand before that role. So kind of helped shape me into role I'm in today for the past 2 years, which is the general manager at our Pennsylvania facility. And enjoyed that so far. Still learning a lot, but it's been enjoyable.
Well, that's quite a history, and you can see behind you the product and the factory that you're currently running. You really got to have an up close and personal interaction with a lot of the building blocks that help make the facility run, including the customers. So
Right.
while I do know it wasn't a purposely cultivated career path to prepare you to general manager, it certainly sounds like it was one that really got you there. So
Yeah.
so what of that background, that fantastic background, what job best prepared you for the leadership role you're in today?
Definitely say my time with the Air Force. I mean, just general military bearings, how to conduct yourself professionally, how to stay cool and calm in some maybe hectic situations, how to keep a level head about yourself. I think that's important to pass on to the team, how they see how you react. Another big part in the Air Force from early on was working as a team, winning and failing as a team, as one. From early on, even like with something like our dorm inspections and basic training. If Joe didn't fold his socks right, the whole place was getting turned inside out, and you're starting over again. You didn't have time to point fingers and say it's Joe's fault. You had to all come up and recover as a team. So that was a very important value, I thought, to learn how to win and fail as a team.
Oh, those are great lessons, and you're not the first person to mention the military background and preparation for manufacturing leadership. And that cool and calm under pressure, right? Manufacturing is always under pressure, and there's always something new, and there's always a problem. And so being able to work your way through it is all you can do. And so that leadership is crucial. And you win and lose as a team, right? It doesn't matter if it's welding or burning or assembly or painting. If stuff doesn't go out the door, the customer's unhappy, and it really doesn't matter whose fault it is, as we still didn't satisfy a customer. So consequences might not be quite as significant as they are in the military, but at the same time, you have a legacy of a 125-year-old company that you have responsibility to serve, and so those traits as a leader are pretty important to see you through the day. So
yeah.
So each day you come in, a lot going on, operating all the time. What's the most important thing for you in starting your day?
Lately, it's been at home, and once I get in the office, it's been starting the day on a positive note. I mean, looking for something to celebrate, something to show appreciation for, whether we, blew a metric out of the park, or could have been we shipped a hot job on time. It could just be a kudos for a good job to an individual. I believe doing such from a leadership position can create a ripple effect through the entire organization. I think back to sometimes when maybe my habits weren't so good, when I'd start the day watching the news, and you see something on there that gets you in a bad mood, and you come to work, and we all have our email on our phone. We might see a problem's already presented itself before we got there, and then you walk in, it's on your face, and you have a negative environment to start the day, and I don't think that's very healthy. So definitely try to watch that and come in on a positive note to start each day. I'd say, I guess, from an operations standpoint, just looking at my schedule and my capacity and my loading every morning to know where we stand. We get a lot of hot jobs that pop up. Customers' equipment breaks, and they want it right now. So I need to be aware of what we can handle so we can make good promises to our customers. So I keep a close eye on that as well to start the day.
That's really good. I like that idea of starting the day on a positive note. Some people forget, especially new leaders, they feel like, oh, this is new, I'm going to sprint my way through this each and every day. But some of the people that work for them have been there, 20, 30, 40 years. It's a marathon, and there's always bad news in manufacturing. So if you can't find some positives and highlight those, it's a tough marathon to keep your energy up. So I think that's a great mindset and habit to get into around finding something positive to build the day around.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into a rut sometimes if there's a lot of negative, but I definitely try to keep that one going.
That's great. That's a good one. So you've already, with that one in mind, your awareness of your impact on the team is very clear. As you said, even just the look on your face, if you look frustrated, it's going to come through, and so you're very aware of the impact you have. So with that daily demand of meeting the customers, that other part of your day, looking at the schedule, the capacity, the loading, what do you do to develop people amidst all of that stuff going on?
We've really had a push lately to cross-train, to develop, even within our departments, different skills, to push people into new things they haven't done before. I think it's very easy in our industry with a craftsman type skill set that you need to do a lot of these processes to just keep putting people in situations that they're good at. But it doesn't allow them to grow. It doesn't allow the organization to grow. What you usually end up with there is a stack of parts you don't need because you keep feeding the guy that part that he's good at. So even though there's some sacrifice of, we might our job hours might go a little high. We have some extra overhead in training. We're at higher risk of rework because we're having people try more challenging things. But I think that's an investment worth making. And even on a personal level, I feel like our employees have the desire to want different opportunities instead of just being fed what they're good at day in and day out. So that's what we've been trying to do lately. And I mean, it's, like I said, there's some pains to it for sure. You have a guy you know who's really proficient at that process, but you give it to someone else and it might take twice as long, and there might be some mistakes, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel you on that. That's this isn't the same analogy, but I like to use soccer coaching analogies because it's one of my passions, and I love playing people in positions that aren't their strength, just as a way to grow and engage differently. And it sometimes hurts the team in the short term, but the long term it pays off.
Right.
As you said, it's an investment, right? It's investments require time to pay you back, which is the right way to think about that. What's the biggest barrier? You talked about some of the inefficiencies that might come from it. What's the biggest barrier to doing that cross training?
I mean, we're metric driven a lot of times. We have goals to beat the job estimate hours. We're mindful of that at the same time, but like I said, you don't want to get so absorbed with that you're not growing at the same time. It's just what we do just takes a lot of skill and on the job experience, and we try to have as many work instructions as we can, but some of this is just, it takes a hands-on level of proficiency that just takes doing it. So that can, while you're trying to make deliveries and watch hours, and you have to juggle that as well. So I'd say that's the biggest barrier.
Yeah. And that I guess that really leads us into a bigger question around the balance of short and long-term goals. So, you know, the daily drumbeat, as well as you have a lot of things that are long pipeline, long lead time items. So whether it's the systems or the people or even the production schedule, you've got to look both short and long term. So how do you balance those two needs day in and day out?
And it's especially tough at Robinson. I mean, we're a custom engineered job shop. So we have some projects that might take 20 to 40 hours and some that have 1,600 hours estimated. So very wide range there. We just have to keep a good eye on our schedule and understand where we need to be, and not fall too far behind on that schedule. We should have an understanding of how much time we have in there to develop that new person without jeopardizing the end goal of the project, which is to ship on time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all the way down to our group leaders have to be aware of that. If we have a new person on it and we're running late, it might be time to switch on that guy that can do it, you know, with his eyes closed, basically. It's been doing it for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we just have to be mindful of that.
Good. And I like how you talk about, you know, it's not just your decision, right? You need your group leaders and other people on your team to really be aware of that trade-off and make those decisions, you know, each and every day. So with that, you know, you mentioned earlier, you know, one of the impediments is the metrics, right? You got to drive the performance and work every day towards that. So how do you use metrics in the factory? How do you design them or select them? How do you use them to drive performance? What's the role of metrics there?
Yeah, I mean, we have some talented folks in IT and manufacturing that have a lot of great metrics that we use on a day-to-day basis. We've started to use Power BI a lot more. We have simple Microsoft ones, and we have just the down and dirty Excel metrics that are self-input and spit out a pie chart at the other side. But I mean, we of course use them to measure success. Anytime we have a corporate goal, there has to be a measure with it to know where we're starting and to know where we want to get to and to know how we're doing in between. We've also used metrics to define the true cause for where we want to improve. Everyone has opinions sometimes on what it is, but without measuring it, seeing that data, that really helps. And we've used metrics to justify an expense. If we're going to spend a lot of money on a new piece of equipment, we need to show why, and metrics can help with that. One good example is when we were setting up the inspection bay. We got to start with a blank slate, like I said. And we had a goal, we had a turnaround goal of like 2 days. And when we started, we were like 20 days. So we were nowhere near it. Everyone had an opinion for why. And instead of going by our opinions, we started to record every time we went over the 2 days, why we went over, whatever reason or reasons. And we compiled all those. It was just an Excel chart that showed us, pie type chart, but let us know which areas to focus on first, I think, which was important. One of those key areas that we saw that was making us go later than desired was there was a conflict in a piece of equipment in our shop. The paid orders had to go across the same piece of equipment as well as the orders in the beginning for the inspection process. So during that conflict, of course, usually the paid orders won because we had a hard date to meet and the inspection stuff kind of sat to the side until that machine was free. So we decided to get to our goal, we needed to invest in another one of those machines. And to do so, to further solidify that investment, we started to track how long the piece waited in front of that machine. Mm-hmm. So we were able to present and say, this is going to save us X amount of days on average. And I think that really helped justify that investment for another machine.
Oh, that's good. And so, metrics for you are not just, what you chase every day. They're also a tool to help decision making and evaluation of what you need to fix and how you need to fix it. That's a good example of that.
Yeah. Can we take a pause real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we think about your day-to-day stuff, obviously, as we already talked about, manufacturing requires quite a bit of daily firefighting and troubleshooting. How do you distinguish from the day-to-day firefights to the sort of systematic improvement efforts that you also try to make?
As I said, we're a custom engineered job shop, so some very unique problems and issues pop up from time to time. To me, whether or not it needs a systematic approach to solving it, I like to see if the problem is a trend. Is it something that's occurring frequently? And does that expose maybe a process that's lacking, a process that's not there at all? So I like to, and we have an NCR system that keeps track of occurrences, so I can see if something's starting to be a trend. If it's just a one-off that's a fluky type of situation, I don't like to throw a team together and have a whole new process. I like to evaluate those few areas on an issue or a problem.
No, I think that's important, especially with being a job shop. Every new product can bring its own version of a problem, right? So you don't want to overreact to the one-offs that is really just need to be solved for that one instance versus something that really is sort of broken or can be improved in the work itself.
Right.
So as far as lean and continuous improvement tools, how have you utilized those in driving your performance?
I really like process mapping. Often what you do at the beginning of a Kaizen, where you'll get the Post-its out and you'll go through every step of the process. All your value-added steps, all your wait times. I like that you often have a diverse group together. You get some outside perspective. You might have a guy in drafting in an event about purchasing. So you get to hear some observations that maybe the people close to the process haven't thought about, just an outsider's perspective. Also, I think it's a good chance to challenge the norm a bit. Kind of removes the defensiveness barrier instead of just going up to someone and saying, hey, I think there's some waste in your process. You kind of take the pressure off of that. It's an event to improve. All ideas are out on the table. You set your ideal future state and it can be as pie in the sky as you want, but it's Usually after that process mapping, we come out with a great hit list of areas to improve. That's one tool for sure I've enjoyed using in the past. And say in addition to that, just root cause analysis, whether it's just a quick 5 whys or the longer drawn out A3 type. Very important to get to that root cause. I think sometimes we can make rash decisions and be chasing the wrong thing, basically. So I really enjoy going through that process to make sure we're pointed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. That's great. What's interesting, you know, your combination of your people orientation and team orientation and your sort of willingness to gain new insights. You talked about data as ways to understand problems and make better decisions. And here, you know, with process mapping and having a diverse group, it's about learning what you might not know about your process. And so, you know, as I hear you talk about it, it wasn't even just about, you know, the map, right? It was about how you use it, who you use it with. So I think that's an interesting takeaway on your leadership style.
Yeah, thanks.
So before we wrap up, just I was like asking this, you know, what do you love most about being in manufacturing?
Love daily challenge. I mean, every day brings a new challenge that honestly the day before I didn't expect. So I mean, it's constantly, there's not much monotony to it. There's an exciting challenge every day. You get to work with people, which you get to help develop people. You get to help build a better organization, I think. So I take pride in that.
That's a good high note to end on. That's sounds like it's been your whole path has been about a couple of those things. So that's thanks for sharing all your experience and perspective, and I'm sure our listeners will benefit from it. So thanks for your time, Don.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jamie.